Is Thomas Piketty a pessimist? Perhaps. He argues that breaking this cycle would require bold measures, such as a global wealth tax. But his greatest contribution is not the solution, it is the diagnosis. Left on its own, capitalism does not naturally produce equality. It naturally drifts toward oligarchy. History shows us that equality is not an accident. It is a political choice. We can choose to tame capital through policy, taxation, and regulation, or we can wait for the system to reset itself through crisis and catastrophe. The choice ultimately is ours. So what does this theory look like in real life today? Look at housing. In major cities, real estate prices rise many times faster than wages. This is our swallowing G. We are told we live in a meritocracy, that education and hard work guarantee success. But Piketty shows that a $1 million inheritance can now generate more wealth than 40 years of high-skilled labor. As a result, wealth becomes increasingly concentrated. The top 1% grow richer simply because their income comes from assets that compound, while everyone else depends on wages that barely keep up. At the center of Piketty's argument is a simple formula. R is greater than G. R represents the return on capital income from assets like stocks, real estate, and businesses. Historically, this averages around 4 to 5%. G represents economic growth, the growth of wages and overall income. In developed countries, this is usually only 1 to 2%. The implication is powerful. When wealth grows faster than the economy, money from the past always outpaces income from work in the present. No matter how skilled you are, no matter how hard you work, you cannot compete with the compounding power of inherited wealth. This is the return of patrimonial capitalism, a system where the future belongs to those who already own the past. Piketty examined more than 300 years of economic data, and the results were striking. The 19th century, from 1800 to 1914, was what he called a rentier society. Wealth was not created through work or innovation. It was dominated by inherited fortunes. So why did inequality suddenly decline between 1914 and 1945? Not because markets became fairer, but because capital was brutally destroyed. World wars physically demolished factories, infrastructure, and property. Inflation wiped out the value of large cash holdings. And governments imposed extremely high taxes, sometimes reaching 90%, on the wealthy to finance war efforts. Piketty's conclusion is clear. Inequality fell not because capitalism corrected itself, but because capital suffered a massive physical and legal shock. For a long time, economics told us a comforting story about inequality. In the 1950s, an economist named Simon Kuznets argued that inequality was simply a temporary phase. As countries developed, inequality would first rise, and then, almost magically, fall on its own. This idea became known as the Kuznets curve, and for decades it was taught in economics textbooks as an almost natural law. But in 2013, French economist Thomas Piketty challenged this belief. By analyzing centuries of tax records and historical data, Piketty showed that the Kuznets curve was not a law of nature at all. It was an illusion,